eHealth is an online source for insurance, and they've been very successful in enrolling over 2 million people in different plans that are available across the country. I'm here now with the CEO of eHealth, and that's Gary Lauer. Gary, thank you so much for being here today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, you have helped people really learn all the ins and outs of insurance plans, and you've enrolled individuals, families, small businesses. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how do you help them interpret what's available in the marketplace?
Well, you know, the inspiration for the company years ago was to take the internet and see if we couldn't harness this tremendous volume of text and data that is health insurance, because if you've ever gone through the decision process of buying a health insurance product for yourself, you know it's complex, it's daunting. And so we tried to reduce it to something that would be navigable and understandable for people. And we've had some success doing that. We've become the largest source in the country for individuals, families, and small businesses that buy health insurance. We do it all online, so it's just the perfect internet application. And we've tried to provide to people tools and things to help them. For example, people really aren't that committed to an insurance company brand name, but they are typically their personal doctor. They have a relationship. So we say, tell us who your doctor is, who's your physician. We'll show you all the products that support that physician.
Oh, interesting.
If you have children, tell us that, and we'll show you those products that have really got good co-pays for visiting the physician or for pharmaceuticals. If you're a couple thinking about having children, tell us that. We'll show you the products that have got good maternity benefits, and on and on. So what we've really tried to do is empower people with information so they can make better decisions.
And it seems even more important than ever now that we've thrown reform into the mix, and there's a lot of confusion over what is correct and what is not correct.
There is today, yeah, and we've still got a few years yet for this to sort itself out. As you know, with reform, most of the deliverables or benefits don't occur till 2014. There's a lot of regulations yet to be written about reform through Health and Human Services and some of the other agencies as well. So there is some uncertainty and some confusion, but we're operating our business assuming that this is the law of the land. It will be in 2014. It's got a lot of good attributes. It's got a lot of attributes, a lot of good things, both for, I think, most importantly, people and for a business like ours as well.
Well, and also, do you think that your company will have a lot to contribute in terms of trying to figure out what is happening? Well, you have a lot of say. You've been dealing in the business of exchanges for quite some time now, so you know how that all works.
Yeah, ostensibly we're the largest exchange in existence, and we've been the longest standing exchange as well. We actually provide our technology to health insurance carriers so they can operate an exchange, if you will, for their products. We've got several public entities, including Health and Human Services, that use our technology for their exchange platform also. So we've been very involved in this. And in fact, I remarked earlier that if there's one thing I'm pleased about in the legislation, it's that Congress recognized what we thought a long time ago, that using the internet to provide access to people is a really good thing to do, and it's actually become part of the legislation.
Isn't that great to be ahead of the game?
Well, yeah, it may have been dumb blind luck, I'm not sure, but here we sit today.
Terrific, terrific. Is there enough collaboration between the private and public sector now, or are you finding that there's not enough of it?
There's some, but there's going to need to be more. I think there's still some trepidation and uncertainty with some of the entities in the private sector. As this bill was passed, it was very political, very politicized. It got a lot of media attention. You could argue that some of the health insurance plan sponsors, the carriers, were vilified and demonized throughout this process. You've got a number of Republicans who aren't supportive of this, Democrats who are. So it's been a very interesting process, and it still is politicized today. You've got several states that have sued over the constitutionality of this bill, and specifically the mandate that requires everyone to have health insurance. There are 2 federal judges who have listened to these suits and have ruled that the mandate is constitutional. There are 2 that have ruled it's not constitutional, one particularly in Florida. It looks like this may be heading to the Supreme Court. You've got a Republican majority in the House of Representatives that several weeks ago voted to repeal this legislation, more recently voted to defund it. So there's still a fair amount of noise around this. Again, we're approaching this from the standpoint that this is the law of the land. It will continue to be. But I think we're all going to hear and read a lot more about this as time passes.
Well, and you certainly know the land very well since you deal in all of the states, and so might certain plans work better in some states and not so well in others? Is that what you see?
Clearly. There's no question about that. You know, you've got each state is really interesting, and within a state you've got different makeups of people. You've got different languages that you deal with. You've got different economic strata. You've got different industries. You've got different things that people that think about in terms of their behavior, how they raise their families, and on and on. And you've got different provider capabilities that actually provide the health care. And so what's required, we think is obviously differentiation and products and things that are reflective of the marketplace that people reside in. And that's what's going to be interesting with exchanges. So the legislation requires that each state set up an exchange in 2014 that people can go to. And we think these exchanges will be different state by state because the differences of the interests in the state, both of the people who reside in the state and state government and how they want to implement as well.
So would you agree that perhaps states should be given their own rules and flexibility and really settle this within their own state rather than going to a national level?
Yeah, I think what we're going to see, I think we'll see coming nationally from Health and Human Services some regulations or requirements that a state exchange needs to meet. But then what my read of this is that we're going to see the states get a fair amount of flexibility in terms of how they implement their exchanges. And it'll be interesting to see how all of this develops and so on. And when you bring the politics back into this, today we've got more Republican governors than Democratic governors in the 50 states. And we've got some states that have gone on record as saying that they don't want to implement any of this. Some saying that they're going to implement only to the minimum that's required. So you've got some of that tension in the system as well.
Right, and to sort of cut some of that out.
Yeah, but the viewpoint that we take is that this bill is good in that there are 32 million people who are going to get coverage that don't have it today. Morally that's a good thing to do. There's no question about that. Mm-hmm. And the big question is going to be how do we get all these people enrolled into quality plans? And that's what our business has done for a long time, and it's something we're very eager to help with and in a constructive fashion help to make this legislation even more successful and more effective for people. Our business is really about being advocates for the consumer. The way we generate revenue is when someone buys a product, and they're only going to buy a product on our platform if we offer something that's got a high degree of value. And so we really kind of, earn every day our existence for the next day by doing things that work for people. So we advocate for people in terms of the tools we give them and the kinds of products we expose them to. And we think that's a good thing in this marketplace, and hope to see a lot more of that as we get closer to implementation of this legislation.
All right, absolutely. Thank you so much for stopping by today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm Mabel Jong. You're watching continuing coverage of the World Healthcare Congress in Washington, D.C.